Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Unlearn with Bianca. If you're tuning in for the first time, then welcome. On this podcast, we explore everything around self-healing, health, personal growth, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. Hey, beautiful people, welcome back. Today on the episode, I'm going to be talking all around masculine and feminine energy, what it is really about, what it is, what it isn't, and get you to start thinking about your own energy and how it shows up in your life. I decided to do this episode because last week on my stories, I put up that I had been running a workshop around this topic, and I had so many questions and a lot of people saying, can you do a podcast on this? I want to learn more about this whole energy thing, how it relates to health, how it relates to our relationships. And I thought that's a perfect idea because sometimes I just throw these concepts out there and I forget that I really need to break it down for people. So this is what this episode is going to be for. It's a concept that I started learning and understanding about probably 7 years ago, but in the last few years, it's really started to make more sense to me. And I'm starting to see it play out in my own life, in my own relationships, and my clients. And yeah, I think it's something that we all need to have an awareness around. Okay, so let me start by explaining what masculine energy and feminine energy actually is. So when I'm using these terms, I'm just referring to energies, masculine and feminine, that are within us. It's not about male, female, it's not about gender, it's about none of that. I want you to just think of it as different energies that we each have inside us. And I like to think of the yin-yang symbol because that's sort of how it appears in my brain, is that there's a balance of both. So feminine energy is often associated as intuitiveness, understanding, insight, intuition, connection, openness, those types of qualities, sensuality, expression, receptiveness. And in terms of masculine energy, we can think of it as assertiveness, decisiveness, rationality, strength, independence. So as you're listening, you will be able to relate to things both on the feminine energy side and the masculine energy side. And again, that is because we have all of it within ourselves. What we really want to have an awareness around and really want to learn to do is to tap in and out of each depending on the situation. I know there are a lot of TikTok girlies who love sharing about the soft life and being in your femininity, especially for the woman. And hey, I do not underestimate the power of our femininity as women. However, I feel like this is quite a nuanced conversation, and I really want to approach it in a more balanced way because I know that your energy will be unique to you. Because although I innately believe that many females tend to have more of a feminine energy, let's say like 60%, 70% feminine energy, maybe 30 to 40% masculine energy, and males vice versa, it is completely unique to the individual. And I'm so aware that some people will not resonate with this. So yeah, take this conversation with a grain of salt. And the key here is that within our energies, we want flexibility. We want to be able to draw on both energies as needed. But as you will soon hear in this conversation, it's not really working like this at the moment, and there are a few reasons for that. So today's episode is really going to be focused more through my own lens as a modern female. So it will be more focused for those who feel that they have lost touch with their feminine energy, especially for females that feel that they're out of balance. If you feel like that, I promise you, you are not alone. Times are changing. If you're feeling tired, if you're feeling like you have to do it all, if you're feeling burnt out, you are not alone, because I am hearing, like I said, the same things come up time and time again with my clients, with friends, and I have been there myself. And I want to preface and say that is not to say that just because this episode is more tailored towards femininity and women who are feeling out of touch with that, this is not to say that men don't have their own issues and the masculine has many issues, because I do feel like we are at a time where a lot of people were struggling with relationships. A lot of people were coming against blocks and identity blocks. And it's something I'd love to have a conversation around if there's any male that wants to come on and talk about men's mental health. It's just not something I feel comfortable personally speaking on, and having not had that experience. Even if we just think of the cultural stereotypes that men have gone through, of you just need to harden up, there's no room for emotion, men aren't deep beings, this is all incorrect. And this is just, again, another example of how important it is for males to also be comfortable to be in touch with their feminine energy in terms of openness, dealing with emotions, and that kind of thing. So that's a whole other conversation that we could go into. And like I said, if anyone wants to come in and have this conversation, I would love to, because this fascinates me. Okay, so let's get back into what I think is going on and where we're heading and what we want to work to. Okay, so if we go back to the concept of masculine energy being the doing energy and feminine energy being the being energy or qualities, I am going to argue that most women in today's day and age sit more comfortably in masculine energy. And that is no one's fault. That there are many reasons for that, which we'll go into soon. But most people I talk to, most of the time when I do workshops on this, most women can resonate with being more in a doing energy. So for us as women to come back into balance or to lean and be more comfortable with our feminine energy, there's a few different things we can do. What I'm going to do before we even get into that is I'm going to share with you how a healthy, developed feminine energy can look and how a healthy, developed masculine energy within us can also look. So if we are really embodying our feminine energy strongly, we understand that self-care is really important before we give to others. We own what is felt emotionally, meaning that people that are in touch and really embody their feminine energy, they are okay with emotions. They are beginning to be okay with vulnerability and sharing what is on their heart. Developing healthy feminine energy means that you can accept what is. And that is that surrender piece, or that letting go piece of not trying to control things that are out of your control and really seeing things for how they are and working with that. And one thing that is really true is that when we're in our feminine energy, we see value in ourselves and in others for being rather than doing, meaning that yes, there are the titles, there are the roles, there are the responsibilities, but none of that is as important as how we show up being ourselves. When we balance that with developing a healthy masculine and really tapping into our masculine energy under the right conditions, under the right circumstances, for example, like I obviously have to get into my masculine energy when I'm doing this podcast and doing work, because I have deadlines to meet and I have to get my shit sorted. When we're in the healthy masculine energy, we enjoy a challenge. Okay, we have a to-do list and we get through that to-do list. We are practicing patience. And when we have a healthy relationship with our masculine energy, we are able to set clear and loving boundaries. One thing I think is really important to note here is that our feminine energy, and I've really just started talking to the females here, but our feminine energy, it cannot flourish and it cannot really grow and reveal itself until we have that healthy masculine energy within. For example, if we don't have any clear loving boundaries and we don't have a very good relationship with our no, then there's not going to be any space and energy to really lean into our feminine energy, because we're just going to be too exhausted. So that is why the masculine energy and the feminine energy are really important. So how do you know if you need to work on developing your masculine energy? You're probably attracting the wrong partners and getting taken advantage of because of that boundary thing. You're not sure how to assert yourself confidently, and you don't want to shine too bright. So that all comes down to confidence and self-assuredness. How do we know when we are out of touch or need to work on revealing more of our feminine energy? Now, I want you to listen to this one because this one is what a lot of people resonate with. When we are off balance and we lean more masculine, less feminine, we can find ourselves becoming hyper independent. Emotions are something that need to be fixed. That's how we see emotions. So it's not something that we, allow ourselves to have. It's something that needs to be solved and fixed, which is a more masculine approach. Impatience, so becoming impatient at other people, feeling over responsible, and becoming hardened. Okay. So that is very common. Other ways to tell if our masculine energy is taking more of the lead across our life. We might have difficulty connecting with others emotionally and having relationship challenges, becoming really over competitive in relationships. Burnout, this is a huge one because there's an overemphasis on productivity and achievement, and this can result in burnout because remember that burnout is based around doing, achieving, and getting external validation that way. Resentment and isolation, and this is often unconscious when we feel like we are suppressing our femininity and our aliveness. This can lead to feelings of resentment towards others, and then we become disconnected and isolated. And I've got a few more here because I know you'll be relating because I've definitely been there. Difficulty with intimacy. So when we are out of touch with our feminine energy, we find it a lot harder to become vulnerable and develop deep and meaningful relationships, which means we can just have those surface level connections. And finally, I'm going to chuck this one in here, health issues. When we are constantly doing, and we're not even aware of why that might be or how we've got to that point, and that can lead into more chronic health issues. And this is also to do with armoring that goes on in the body from constantly being in our masculine energy, which I will talk on more soon. Okay, so if you're still with me, then you probably have been relating to a few of those. And you might be thinking, okay, what do I do about that? How the hell did I get there? And again, I want to reiterate, this is common, and it's really common with the modern woman because we have almost been sold a lie, in my opinion, and that is that we can do it all and have it all at the same time. And of course, feminism has given us all the opportunities, and we are so, so lucky in that respect to have opportunities, to have different options that were never present, not even that long ago. But we are in an era where we are sort of between what I think is like two worlds at the moment, and this is why people are all sort of feeling the same way. So I'll share with you through my own lens and my own experience about how, as women, rather than innately being comfortable and tapping into our feminine energy, especially in the Western society, we are more comfortable with our masculine energy. So first of all, we've got the patriarchy, and I won't go into that. And then we've got good girl conditioning. And that is that females must behave in a certain way to be validated and accepted as we grow up. So good girls don't do that or act this way, and that's how we receive love. There's definitely females out there that feel more innately in their feminine energy, even though I don't think it would be as many in this day and age. I think there are. And what I truly believe is that people are just going to put forth traits and qualities that keep them safe as they were growing up. So if you learnt somewhere growing up that being soft and receptive meant that people would step in and protect you, then you're going to do more of that. You're going to feel comfortable with doing that. If you were raised in a culture whereby being empowered was not an option and it posed you danger, then you're not going to step into that. So yeah, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but hopefully that makes sense. So we have our conditioning, and we live in a society where doing and achieving is really valued. So that is why I think a lot of us are more comfortable with our masculine energy. And unless we're really putting energy into nurturing and revealing our feminine energy, I think it's not something that's really a priority, that we're told is a priority. So if I look back at my life, I can connect some dots, and if it helps, I'll share a little bit. So I think, some of my earliest romantic relationships didn't go so well naturally. That is one thing that we can do as women is protect ourselves for next time, right? So that causes more hypervigilance when we get into more relationships down the track. I had traumas that caused me to live in more hypervigilance. I was more of a high achiever type A personality who really valued a lot of achieving and doing and was validated for that. So again, that's what I began to see as important. And as that was reiterated, I would try harder and harder. That's when I started missing my body's cues and a whole lot of other things went on. And that's when I, got chronic illness. So even if I look up until that place, I was, following what most people do, and I was operating in my masculine energy for the most part, as in my 20s. After I had gotten over the chronic pain, I still felt extremely disconnected from my body, from my sensuality, from softening, and I was still wearing a lot of armor in my body. I felt tight and rigid in my body. And then there's other things like grief and operating out of survival mode for a period and really being in that doing energy to get by until it becomes habitual and unconscious. So I got to a point a few years ago and I really realized I'm going to have to change the way I'm showing up because it's not working. It's not working. I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I'm going through a really difficult season. And if I want to bring in a relationship in the future, I'm going to have to change the way I'm going about things and the way I'm approaching my life so that I don't feel this over responsibility for everything, which I was feeling at that point. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a side tangent. Hopefully you're going to relate to some of these things. But what I really thought about and what I really worked through myself is looking at different aspects of feminine energy and how I can just start to bring them back into my life and really start to think about where am I not seeing the value in being. I personally have really realized that as much as having all these nice things and achieving all these things will look good and temporarily feel good, I know deep down that it's not going to change a lot. And what is really important to me is not being a boss babe, not having all of that, but being able to enjoy the process along the way and slow down. So yeah, this has been part of my journey and really looking at myself and the way I'm showing up and what energy I'm putting out there too. Okay, so back to different things that are more feminine energy qualities that I want you to think about. Is this something I'm really good at, or is this something that needs a bit of work? Because the more you can become aware, you can start to notice and shift and make new choices in your life. So the first thing is receiving. What is your relationship like with receiving? If you're somebody who tends to be more comfortable with your masculine energy, think about receiving, okay? Because this is a feminine energy quality. Are you okay to ask for support? Do you welcome others to do things and to help you in their own way? Or are you someone that goes into manage and critique or watch over someone? Do you feel worthy of receiving even if you haven't got anything to give in return? So not jumping in to give back or not thinking that there's an ulterior motive. Can you graciously accept compliments and know that there is enough to go around? So rather than pushing a compliment straight back or denying or dismissing the compliment, can you graciously accept compliments? And can you really hold what you desire? So if you want more money, can you hold it, or does it go out as fast as it comes in? If you want a particular friendship, does that friendship stay around, or does it seem to just not work? These are some good questions, reflective questions to ask yourself. If you're thinking, oh yeah, I definitely need some work with receiving and accepting others' support, then that is okay. We identify it first. What can you start to do to really increase your ability to receive? I think it starts in the smallest of things, like letting someone carry a bag, letting someone hold a door open for you, not having to get in there and like do it first. Taking a compliment graciously and just saying thank you, that means a lot. It happens in these really small moments. If you are doing a job and under your breath thinking, I'd love some support, but when someone does ask, you just say it's fine, you've got it. That is a prime example where you can learn to boost your receiving quality. This is such a feminine quality because when we think about receiving, it's like, oh, it's like a sigh to the nervous system. So, yeah, where can you receive more? Doesn't have to be a big thing, and not make it mean anything because you are worthy of receiving. The next quality that we can work on, is making space for vitality to come through. Are you allowing yourself time to be in your body? Because this is another feminine quality. Being in our body, being in our masculine energy is more to do with being in our head and our logic. So we have to consciously come back into the body. It might be something like dancing for 2 minutes in the morning or doing a 5-minute breath work practice. It might be walking, but simply doing it really mindfully where you're noticing how your body feels. So there's all these things, but our vitality, our vibrance is really, it lives in our body, and we know how good it feels when we've done a shaking practice or dance, like how alive we can feel after that. So this is really important. Are you feeling comfortable in the mundane space? Because what I find when we've been in our masculine energy for a while, we are really addicted to the busyness, and space and presence can be uncomfortable. So we have to work to build the capacity to be comfortable with space in the mundane, just sitting around loved ones and really being present in that moment, being outside and getting some sun on your face and simply being in gratitude. All of these things that we can really, again, work on in small ways. Finding pleasure in small moments, again, very similar, just being really mindful. Do you believe that you are deserving of pleasure? That might be sensual, sexual pleasure, but also just having pleasurable moments in your life, like buying yourself flowers, having a nice smelling candle, wearing an outfit that makes you feel good, taking a moment to put on your favorite moisturizer. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just about connecting to your senses. That's what pleasure is. And this is really connected to our feminine energy. Another one for vitality is, are you making space for your creative pursuits? And you might be thinking, yeah, Bianca, I'm not a creative person. Well, by creative, I mean, again, kind of getting back into your body, like anything where you're using your hands and you're being present. Gardening, cooking, painting, a pottery class, dancing, basically anything that doesn't have it's not outcome orientated. That to me is a creative pursuit where you can switch your brain off. So again, more of a feminine quality, a feminine trait is accessing that part of our brain and being in the moment like that. Another thing that's really helped me tap into my feminine energy is looking at my relationship with my emotions. So first of all, it's just knowing that I influence my own life and I can really take responsibility in that and how I show up. Another thing that is more associated with feminine energy is being okay with range and expressing uncomfortable emotions without going into justifying, without going into guilt, without going into over explaining, and simply just accepting this is how I feel. It won't last forever, being okay with it and being able to express that to yourself or to someone else. I think that's a really powerful thing to be able to do rather than stifling emotions, rather than just ignoring our emotions, pushing them down, charging on. It's just getting comfortable with expressing. And that goes on to vulnerability. A real feminine quality is being able to be vulnerable to people you feel safe with and people you trust. And that's something that we can all practice, like the more, I personally think, like, I don't want to be over vulnerable, but the more we can practice vulnerability and authenticity, the more others are going to show up like that around us. And then we realize that we're all human and we all have the same feelings anyway. And finally, another one on emotions that I've been working on is listening to understand and reflecting. So rather than jumping straight back and speaking your mind and, getting into impatience and trying to prove a point, I think that's it, with logic. It's really about listening to someone, doing your best to hear where they're coming from, pausing, looking at your energy and how you want to communicate something back. And again, that's a practice we can all work on, regardless of if you're trying to embody more feminine or masculine energy, but it's a really powerful thing to do. Okay, so the next quality that helps to think about if you're trying to access feminine energy is how embodied you are. And embodied simply means being in your body. So what I have really found in the last few years with keeping this front and center of my mind is how I can create more spaciousness in my body. And that's why I started dance. That's why I really prioritize my stretches. That's why I do yoga. Just slowing down has been really important to me. Before I said feminine energy lives in our body, not in our head. So I really think we have to take time to find ways to be grounded before we can get into it. Deepening our breath, slowing our breath down, taking time to really step into an open posture, just really working on your posture, doing any type of movement that makes you feel fluid and agile and open in your body, getting comfortable with, again, expressing emotions through the body, like through your face, through your tone, frustration, anger, love, vulnerability, like when that comes out and we can see it in someone's body, that is them being embodied. And another way I've really practiced being more embodied is just doing constant check-ins with my body. How am I feeling? What do I need? Do I need more rest? Do I need an early night? That kind of thing. And one more way we can really practice being embodied is being really present with someone if they're talking. So taking time to put everything else aside, putting phones away, really listening. And yeah, that presence is so underrated, where we're offering support rather than a solution. So again, 4 things to consider if you're feeling a bit out of balance and you want to tap into your feminine energy, what your relationship to receiving is like, really taking time to practice receiving, making some space for your vitality, looking at your relationship with your emotions, and finding ways to feel more in your body or embodied. Some other ways to tap into our feminine energy is just looking at where we can become more flexible. And that really comes down to knowing like what is within our control, what is not within our control, and where we can start to not see things as black and white, because I think flexibility and adaptability is really powerful quality that we can. Some other powerful things I've done that have helped is switching up my spaces and changing things up, like having a spring clean, but also changing my environments. Getting changed. Let's say you've had a busy work day and you're doing masculine energy for most of it. Coming home, having a shower, getting changed into different clothes can really signify like, yep, that is the end of the work day, and this is now the rest of my evening where I'm not going to carry that energy into my evening, and I'm going to be able to relax more. I'm going to be able to soften. That can really help. Another one is communication and how we communicate in relationships. I'm not going to go into this too much, but if you have liked this episode, let me know and I'll do like a whole other episode on what I've learned about, what I've read, and what's been fascinating to me. And I just really want to hone in again on that community piece. Like being able to access our feminine energy really relies on us being in a community or having people we can trust. So investing in time and building and maintaining meaningful relationships and fostering connections where you feel really supported can just really help with this journey. So as I wrap up this episode, I just want to remind you, whether you're male, female, listening, we all have both energies within us, and it's all unique to us as individuals. How that is expressed, only you will know what feels good for you. But for the ladies that are listening and they've resonated with things I'm saying, and they're feeling out of balance, and they are feeling like they want to tap into their feminine energy and feel more comfortable with that, know that it's already there. It's just something that when you feel safe enough within, you will be able to reveal more of. And I can definitely help you do that through self-source, which I'll be doing again in the new year. The benefits of being able to tap into your energy for your health, for your happiness, for your relationships, it's just huge. It's so underrated, and I can really feel that people are starting to understand that. And yeah, just know that you are valued for being rather than doing. Your being is valued just as much as all the things that you do, all of the achievements that you have. You are simply enough just by being yourself. I hope this episode was insightful. I hope you learned a lot. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. It's kind of out of the box, but for me, it's all interconnected to our health as well. So hopefully you guys see that as well. I hope you have a great rest of the week and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.